the city, like my peer from the finance department, human resources, public works. It always seems like we're the ones that are setting agendas and pushing it out to the community, and then the community members can comment on whatever that form of communication was. If it's social media, if it's an official thing that's on the city's website, the police department's website, all of the above. So what I would like to do tonight is I have no prepared items. I did bring some documents for me to refer to, because what I don't want to do, I just realized I said I'd use the microphone and then I moved away from it. What I don't want to do is I don't want to speak from an uninformed, unverified perspective. So if you're going to ask about some numbers, about trends, I have some information here that I can refer to, but this is your forum. And you have Captain Eric Lane in the back there, who is, he's been with me every step of the way. I'm in my 31st year with the Hawthorne Police Department, all as a sworn police officer. Eric, 24 years. So, and then we also have our current lieutenant from the Special Operations Bureau just walking in here, Lieutenant Jose Saldana. So these are what in the profession we refer to as the subject matter experts. So if somebody asks a question today that stumps me, I'm going to refer to the subject matter experts and see if you can stump them. But my purpose here is to be as transparent as I possibly can about what's going on in the city, specifically what's going on in the police department. And with that, I will, since it's a small enough group, and please, nobody has any obligation to answer. If you, maybe some introductions here.
I'm John L. Jefferson. I'm a resident of Hawthorne. I live in Holly Park, and I'm the pastor of this congregation.
Father Cyril working with the Coptic Orthodox Church. God bless us with the church that is one block east or north of this here. We're working on getting permits for renovation. I serve, eventually I'll be serving there. Currently we rent a place in Culver City.
Okay. Ma'am?
Karen Hickey, 26-year resident of Hawthorne, and we're on track.
North or south of El Segundo Boulevard? This side of El Segundo Boulevard or closer towards Rosecrans?
On the south?
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
132nd Street.
Okay. Sir?
My name is Anthony, and we gather at this church. We have the service in time.
Oh, fantastic. And my Spanish skills have left me since I graduated from high school. I tried to take a couple of years of high school Spanish. So if I say something that doesn't track, please feel free. I'm pretty sure that Lieutenant Saldana is fluent in Spanish and he'll be able to help explain some things if necessary, okay? Kyle, we're doing just introductions because it's such a small group. If you want to introduce yourself. No obligation, by the way.
Oh, that's okay. I'm Kyle Orlman. I'm on the city's Veteran Affairs Commission. I've lived here for over 25 years. Have come here and got food when we've been out of it. And that's kind of it.
Okay, so fantastic. So this is, I don't want to say the word, but for lack of a better way to explain it, this is a shotgun approach. If you have a question, shout it out. Let's see if we can answer some questions that you might have about the police department, what's going on in society as a whole, or even general city questions. Anybody?
Actually, I have a traffic kind of issue.
Of course.
On Corderi, between 135th and Rosecrans, but particularly between 135th and 139th. There's parking on both sides of the street, and there's 2 lanes, one each direction in the middle. There's also a number of speed humps in there. And the problem that we're having is those are all apartments in there. And so frequently somebody will pull up with
so I will address those two concerns of yours in reverse order by the size of the giant grin on my face, talking about the westbound 105 exiting onto Prairie Avenue. The reason why there's a giant grin on my face is because you've already answered the question. That is a CHP issue. Okay? And if we're light on the questions tonight, I'll give you a little bit of background on some of the other things, more traditional police roles that Hawthorne PD is doing. I'll talk about some of the numbers of what's gone on in the city since for the current calendar year. And you will hopefully, I know it's not a great answer, ma'am, but I will hopefully be able to give you some context to help you process why I think that the city of Hawthorne has plenty of its own issues that the police department will focus on without taking on the responsibilities of Caltrans, the Highway Patrol, traffic-related issues as a result of any events that are going on in the city of Inglewood's entertainment district, okay? So that was the second part of your question. On the first part of your question, for it was Cordery Avenue between 135th Street and 139th Street with an already impacted street with parking issues, but on this particular residential street, there's parking on both sides of the street, and you might be able to get two smart cars traveling in opposite directions, northbound and southbound, to comfortably pass one another on the street. And that's if nobody is double parked. So a little bit of context here, Erica and Jose, I'll rely on you on this. I have not personally done the math on this, but the city of Hawthorne is approximately 6 square miles. And in that 6 square miles, our most recent census information is that there are 88,000 residents that are in the city. And that's pretty impacted. That's very dense. There's a huge amount of population density. And that's what we have documented. The number of residents that exist in the city of Hawthorne is probably higher than that. And we always rely on census information, but at the end of the day, it's not just our residents. It's people who come to the city to work, people who come to visit people who reside here. So the number of people that we have in the city, I pretty conservatively can say it's over 90,000, right? So, and that area that you're talking about, Cordery Avenue from 135th to 139th Street, for historical purposes, we refer to that community in Hawthorne as Manita Gardens. Manita Gardens, generally speaking, is 1 square mile. This is a 6 square mile city with 90,000 residents. Manita Gardens is 1 square mile. And I have been told that it houses 50% of our population. Okay, so you're taking a very, very high density population for a small city of 6 square miles, and half of the population of this city resides in that 1 square mile area. Parking is impacted even in our less population density areas of the city, right? So when you bring that up as a concern, of course it's a concern. It's a concern for myself and for our administrators in the back row there. We want our police officers to be able to get anywhere in this city as quickly and as safely as they can in order to provide a service. When somebody calls 911, asks for the police department or the fire department, we want to get there as fast as we can in order to do our jobs. Hopefully help out our fellow residents, right? But there is no solution. Okay, so perhaps we can do some enforcement and we can start citing people for parking violations if they're double parked. But I want to be reasonable about this. If somebody is moving into or out of an apartment, where are they going to find a spot to park their moving truck? I don't expect the movers to be walking 7 blocks away from the home or from the apartment complex carrying a sofa on their backs because we're worried about double parking. So I think that the answer is much more measured than this. It's not scorched earth. We're not going to go in there with our parking enforcement staff, which has to deal with impacted parking throughout the city for basically 1 square block in that area. Because Court area is no different from Doty Avenue, which is no different from Floorwood, which is no different from Yukon, Cornbloom, and any of the other streets in that community. But I will say this in the city's defense, and this is for context, this is what is important. 2 years ago, the city of Hawthorne, on its own, initiated a parking T program. And the parking T are those marks on every single city street now that designates where you can park in the street, right? So there are actually California traffic engineering codes that dictate how much space is required for a formal parking spot. So the follow-on complaint from some of our residents is that, hey, there's only one parking T here, but it could have been 2 parking spots. But there's not enough linear footage from one apron of one driveway to the apron of the next driveway to create 2 parking spots. So in those situations, we only do 1 parking spot. But the impetus why the city took action on that was because as human beings, sometimes we're very selfish. And if I live in a house or live in an apartment and I have a spot that's big enough for 2 cars, but my roommate or my friend leaves for the day, I move my car and I park it right in the middle so that it's still only big enough for 1 spot. The parking T removes that ability, right? Because if you're not parked within the designated space, we can now issue you a parking citation. So throughout the city, what I can definitively say is that we have increased the amount of available street parking spots in all of our communities. But what I can also tell you is that that created complaints from people who were not unhappy with the situation before. So if I'm one of those people that used to walk out of my apartment every day when my roommate's going to work, and my roommate leaves and I move my car up 5 feet so no one can park in front of me or behind me now, and when my roommate calls me and says, hey, I'm coming home, I go meet him and I move my car back 5 feet, now he's got a reserved parking spot. Those are the things that we're trying to combat. It's not an all answer. We can definitely assign more parking enforcement to patrol that area, but it's not going to resolve the issue to the extent that you would like it resolved.
2 things. She's alerting on me. I've got to go take some medications. I'm going to do that. But would having a loading zone in front of the large apartment buildings be a partial solution? And the second question for when to come back, I understand that they're talking about 100 units being built on the property on the west side of Corderi, just north of Rosecrans. You've got that strip mall, then there's the blank space that was supposed to be veteran housing that is not, and then there's a church next to it, and what I've been told, don't know this for positive, is that they've got a bid out for 100 units of housing there, and that's less than an acre. So that would be problematic, and I bet you have more influence on whether that happens or not than I do. I'll be back.
I bet you're wrong, but go take your medication and we'll discuss this when you get back. So Kyle and I have a long-standing relationship. I want to take some time here. We have one of our appointed city commissioners that just walked in. It's Commissioner Ruby Cohen. She sits on the Planning Commission. So I now have a commissioner from our Veteran Affairs Commission asking about a potential development project in her own community. And when she walks back in the room, I'm going to defer her to her counterpart, the Planning Commissioner, and I will charge $25 admission. 2 fighters enter the cage, only 1 comes out, and winner take all. That's how we're going to do it. Any other questions? Anything?
What do you believe the pulse of our community is in terms of, as it relates to residency and the crime that is in there? You know, we're in a good space, we're in a mediocre space, we're in a concerning space. What do you believe our pulse?
Well, we are the police department. I represent the police department. The police department never emerges from the concerned space. Even when everything is going good, we're just waiting for the bad to occur, right? This is our default setting, and no matter where you live, you could live in Hawthorne, you could live in South Central Los Angeles, or you could live in Beverly Hills. You could live in Bel Air. If your police department is not anticipating the worst and planning for the worst and role playing, what will we do if this happens? Your police department is not going to be ready when something bad does happen. Okay, so the police department always has a default setting where we are worried about the next big crime, the next big tragedy that will occur. As far as the community's concerned, or what I personally feel the community's pulse is, we call for a meeting like this and we have 6 people show up, 2 of which are loosely affiliated with the city already. I don't know how I'm supposed to interpret that. Part of me interprets that to feel like the community, well, I will say times are different right now. As I speak to you in the middle of July 2025 in this country, times are different, right? I can understand why some people would not show up. But I would say that generally speaking, this is the norm for the city. We have meetings and we give an opportunity for the community to come out and express what their concerns are. And this is the average attendance for those opportunities. So I would say, yes, ma'am.
Can I speak to that?
Please do.
The only way I knew about this is I happened to be at Lowe's yesterday and walked up to the house part.
Mm-hmm.
Said hello to my 2 gentlemen, officers there, we were just chatting, and Sergeant Scott said, hey, if you're around tomorrow at 6, come to this meeting and know what happened. Otherwise, I didn't know that. And that is typical of the city in that they don't, and he said that he purposely did not put it out on social media and did not invite the entire city because he didn't want the troublemakers to come. And so, but that is typical of the city is they don't communicate with the residents.
Well, you know what? We advertise it on all of our social media platforms. I even announce it here from the pulpit. We pass out flyers to all of the people, because we have on a weekly basis, we have about 900 families that come through this church
Okay.
on a weekly basis. And so we put that information out, we invited people to come. Even when we did the drive-through, we put that information out. So I'm kind of
But
mad at
I
myself.
Well,
I don't follow, I'm not a member of Delaware Baptist, I don't follow
So I-
social media.
So first of all, fantastic comment. And we are, as a city, I think that we are aware that we can communicate better with our community. Okay? That being said, I just wrote something down on the back of this paper in ink so that you can't accuse me of making stuff up as I go along. And I wrote it down immediately upon your comment. Have you signed up to receive an electronic version of the city's newsletter?
Yeah,
You have.
I have.
Have you ever looked at the calendar section of the city's newsletter? That has every city event
It is on there?
is on the calendar. So we are having a city event, what's that?
And this was.
Today was not. Today, what Sergeant Nichols told you is absolutely true.
Okay,
But are you aware, if you were subscribed to the city's newsletter, that tomorrow we will be having a Movies in the Park event at Memorial Park?
absolutely.
But you're not aware, are you aware of it from the city's newsletter?
Yes.
So you are subscribed to the city's
Yes.
newsletter?
I do read it, and
Okay.
and
So-
council meetings and stuff.
City events are on the city newsletter, okay? This is not a city event. This is a police department event, okay? So there is a minor, there is a nuance here, okay? So, and the nuance, just so that you understand, I cannot attend any city event or forum where I have a quorum from our city council show up, which is 3 or more city council members, because there's no published agenda. And if there's 3 city council members here, they can only discuss what's on the agenda, all right? And put yourself in the position of being a chief of police, where you are an appointed official and the city council majority can dismiss you without cause at any time. Don't get me wrong, I have a nice severance package in my contract. How do I pick which 2 council members are allowed to come to tonight's meeting? I can make a decision. I'm a grown man, and I could do that, but I will not do that. I will not tell 2 council members, you're the 2 that are invited, and tell the other 3, you're not welcome. If that makes sense. All right, so what's on the city newsletter are the city events, but there is communication. There is some communication that goes out from the city. What I would ask you is, what other form of communication would you like from the city to reach our community?
I can get you to really in-depth of whether or not you kind of tinker with it that they have. And social media blast is very present on social media.
Okay, I will pass that back along. I'll pass that along to our city manager, and I'll pass that along to our Hawthorne Community Television Director, and we will see if we can be more consistent with that. Continuing with that, which social media platforms are you following with the city right now?
I'm an Instagram user.
Okay, so are you following the City of Hawthorne's Instagram page, or are you just monitoring it? Okay, do you follow any of the police department's Instagram pages?
No, I do not, but I will.
Okay, so Captain Lane, I'm going to defer to you again as the subject matter expert on this. How many different Instagram pages does the police department have?
We have almost 5, between tactical medicine, our SWAT team, our community affairs, and then some of our canines, our explorer. I mean, we almost have 10. So put information out.
Okay, so there are options that are out there, but it does require a little bit of checking on our part, right? So, yeah, right now my Instagram feed is with artificial intelligence Bigfoot videos that have invaded my algorithm. It's driving me nuts.
Great.
Yes, they're funny, but, so I hope that that answered part of it. So tonight's event is specifically because I wanted the conversation to be focused on things that I can speak to from an informed fashion as the chief of police here, and I didn't want to turn it into something else, so.
I understand, so real quick though, so it's basically advertised through this congregation and this invite to this meeting.
Go ahead, Scott, thank you.
So, we advertise through multiple congregations and as well as some of the actual, not all of the neighborhood associations, but several of the ones they were given to by. And what they tend to do with that, primary, you want an example, on Park, 360 is the first that comes to mind that was invited.
Tangentially, our commissioner from the Planning Commission could sort of represent Holly Park Neighborhood Association. So, sort of, right? Sort of. Yeah, but there's a subgroup in that group. So I think that's who she's probably representing to a greater extent. But message received, 100%. We can do better at communicating. In fact, myself personally and the police department, we were just given a stern talking to by some immigrant rights activists in our city about not putting out some messaging on social media. And so we're trying to correct that right now, but that is a consistent theme and we are working on it. But the days of expecting the city to mail something out to every single resident, those days are over. Everything is transitioning to an electronic format right now because it's easier to manage, it's easier to control, and it's immediate. And at the end of the day, it saves the city of Hawthorne an immense amount of money in keeping the community informed. Okay. And then in terms of general stuff, I don't have to tell you this, you're at more city council meetings than I am. The city of Hawthorne has its own YouTube channel. So if you can't make it to the city council meetings, It's live streamed. It's live streamed real time on a YouTube channel for the city of Hawthorne. You can watch the council meetings and you can stay informed as to what the city is doing. Or you can watch it to whatever is convenient with your own personal schedule. So if Tuesday evenings are spent watching Jeopardy instead of a city council meeting, you can watch it Wednesday afternoon because it'll stay on the YouTube channel. And it essentially is uncensored. It's there in its totality, okay? So that's another way to stay informed.
I have to agree with her, um, on the communication part, because we need something to be done within the actual website itself, to communicate not just events, social events, but any type of town hall meetings, just other type of events besides social events, meaning communication with the police department, there needs to be some type of calendar or something. I don't know what that looks like personally, but I understand where you're coming from, because, you know, there's a lot of people, as myself, you know, I live at Parkside Village. I heard about it, you know, it's good messages.
You and I have plenty of offline conversations when you hear about something. And look, at the end of the day, here's what I'm not going to do today. I'm not going to give out my cell phone number to everybody who's here today, right? But city commissioners, based on their appointment representing the city, they have an ability to contact me. I would tell everybody to organize at much more of a grassroots level. Every association, not necessarily gated communities, but every neighborhood association. So if we break the city down, we have the Ramona Neighborhood Association, North Hawthorne Neighborhood Association, Holly Park Community Association, Bodger Park is organized into a group. Every single one of those board members has my contact information. So if it doesn't rise to the level where any of you might feel comfortable calling 911, contact your board member, and your board member can contact me. And because this is about an honest conversation, if I think that there's a necessity to release information, I'll release it. And if I don't think there's a necessity to release that information, it's privileged information. I don't release everything, right? So you might want to know the gory details of something that's going on, but what you're going to get is there is an active police search occurring in your community, and there is no general threat to the community. But you're not going to know why we're looking for somebody, and you're not going to know who we're looking for, because I have to carry a fine line here and maintain that balance between rights of privacy of whatever is going on. I don't need to let something slip. Okay?
Oh, well, going back to the communication part, going back to, besides the board members, because, you know, I belong to associations, there's a whole bunch of associations, but there's a disconnect also with what I've noticed just with Sunday parades. There's a miscommunication between the board members and the community itself. So that's the disconnect. So you gotta actually try to find the doers. I don't know what that looks like again. You know, there's a broken, you know, with the HOA board members with their community. Some people have the friction right there already. And so, you know, getting messages, delivering messages, and so forth, because I know that for a fact. In my community, we don't receive a lot of communication, the way we want to receive it. So we're broken as an association, or a whole bunch of different associations. And I don't know what that looks like, but it's something to think about of how we can brainstorm together, as a city, to see what we can do in order, you know, for everyone to receive information.
I think the problem is we become more and more individualized, right? Because I've been serving this community for about 30 years. I've been here 25 years, right? So when I first came here, there was a lot of communication out in the community, right? But as we progress through time, it becomes less and less communication. And everybody's like, I live in Holly Park. I don't know what's going on over in Holly Park, right? And you know, and I try to be on all of those platforms so I can see and hear what's going on in the community. But still, I don't even know when the Holly Park Homeowners Association meet. I know they used to meet on Thursday, on the third Thursday or fourth Thursday, but
At the church.
job ourselves, making sure that we are informed about what's going on and sharing that information with as many people as we can. I mean, you know, we can't completely rely on the city and the chief to do all of that, but I think if we are really truly concerned about what's going on in our community, you know, we need to step up. One of our missions here is that we own a 3-mile radius of this church. If anybody's having a problem within a 3-mile radius of the church, we're gonna know about it, and we're gonna be there to address and meet those needs. That's, you know, that's global thinking, but again, we have to start taking ownership to know what's going on in our community.
I will add one quick comment on this issue of communication and organizing by community or by neighborhood. So where I personally live has an HOA, and I despise my homeowners association, okay? But no matter how much I despise my own homeowners association, I will not run for office because I understand what the commitment is to assume those leadership roles and how thankless it is. And it's very easy for me as an individual human being to focus on the decisions that my homeowners association board makes that I disagree with. But at the end of the day, I probably agree with 90% of what they do and the decisions they make. I appreciate the fact that my neighbor is not allowed to paint their house purple. Hey, hey. I'm actually gonna let out a little bit here. I hate the Lakers right now because they haven't won a championship since a shortened 2020 season. So can't root for the Clippers. Got to be for the Lakers. Oh, okay. Well, so I bring that up as an example, right? So as we talk about communities organizing to increase their voice, to increase their influence, that's a fine line again, because who wants to step up and do that?
It's hard though, because you know, you do have it's not perfect, no HOA is perfect, you're gonna have 20% of people that are not gonna actually follow any type of direction, you're gonna have the same problems left and right. And you are, you know, I do the community out and
Yes.
stuff like that, so I'm just very kind of like, I don't really respond to people's feelings or whatever, but when I know that there is somebody coming in being violent or some crimes happening, that's when I step in, but that's it. I try not to be opinionated here and there, whatever, to keep peace within the community.
Okay. I want to regress really quickly here. Kyle, right before you stepped out, you asked about a pending development on Court Area between 139th Street and Rosecrans. I am aware that there is that empty lot. I am aware that there is going to potentially be some higher density housing put on that lot, but I will refer you to the next Planning Commission meeting to ask what plans have been put forth to the Planning Commission, with the understanding that, hey, the Planning Commission is just verifying that whatever is proposed is properly zoned for that area. A planning commissioner, and Commissioner Cohen knows this, the planning commissioners in this city do not think to themselves, I would hate to have a 100-unit apartment complex in this community. The only thing that they can legally consider is a 100-unit apartment complex allowed in that community. And if the plans submitted are consistent with the area what the area is zoned for, the Planning Commission will approve that project.
The problem is, I think there's been a change. And you know, I was very involved in what was originally planned for there. And at the time, it was zoned, it was either 18 or 19 units on that slightly less than 1 acre. And so somewhere between then and the developer that was originally selected for that, needed the density to be 28 to make it pencil out, and they wouldn't do it. That's why I was so stunned when I found out that the RFP went out looking for 100 units on less than 1 acre. That's insane there. And the other thing is with what you mentioned, this is the first time that I've heard, and thank you. I've never been aware that, am I correct, that you've got about
So I was very specific about this. This is what I have been told.
Okay.
Okay?
I-
I'm not going to go out and count how many of 90,000 people are actually residing
The thing
there.
is, if that is the case, or even if it's close, there is no neighborhood association there. And you've probably got 20 or 30 languages spoken in that neighborhood. So how does one go about organizing? And also with the communication stuff, next door used to be really, really good for that. And what I'm finding now, and I don't know if this is everybody else's experience or not, I will get a notice today on my email about a post, and when I go and check the post, it's from 6 days ago. So I'm not getting any kind of current information. And I did, one of your officers was kind enough to set up my phone with the My 311 app, and I tried to make a report on something, and it's not working. So, don't
It
know.
might not be logged in, and what I mean by that is, we can check it out for me.
Please.
But if you logged out at some point, you might not be sending a message, because we do receive messages daily through that app. So somehow you might have been logged out, and you can still see, but we'll check it out.
I haven't touched it since you guys set it up, so.
So I'm trying to stay on top of, like, you're hitting me with 7 comments, and I got to try and memorize what the 7 comments are. So next door,
Yeah.
the Hawthorne Police Department and the city do not control the Nextdoor app. Okay, so I am going to defer. In fact, that app by design is designed so that we cannot engage on that app. So, so that is another one of those one-way communication things, right? So as you are frustrated that you're receiving an email notification that something has popped up on the Hawthorne Communities Nextdoor app, and you open up your app and you see those 6-day-old information, you can imagine how the police and like Sergeant Nichols and Lieutenant Saldana, the people that are actually doing the work in this community, feel when they are told, yeah, this is going on, and then they look at a screenshot that somebody is willing to send us from Nextdoor, and we see that it's been circulating in the community for 2 weeks, and it finally makes it to us. Well, for the visible blight that's on a street corner that's been festering there for 2 weeks, not much we're going to be able to do. All right, so that's for the Nextdoor app. For the My Civic 311, I report things that I see in Hawthorne via this phone app. So we have a My Civic 311. Scott, can you help me out, Sergeant Nichols? What's the new app called? My Hawthorne 311?
Yes.
That you can download off the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, and you can, there's a myriad of categories that you can report to the city via a cell phone app. You may choose to leave your contact information so that we can report back to you, or you can choose to submit these issues anonymously. And I submit issues anonymously, so I don't get a report back, but I know what I submit, and a day and a half later, if it's a business day, I drive by that location and it's been addressed. So there is a way to anonymously submit those types of complaints if you think it doesn't rise to the level of a 911 call, right? There was one more thing that you had mentioned, Kyle, and I've already forgotten what it was. It was My Civic 311. It was Nextdoor.
Oh, there's no neighborhood association.
Okay, so what I would tell you is everything starts small. So where you live, if you live in a home or an apartment complex, start small. Introduce yourself to your neighbors. Talk to the manager of the apartment complex that you live in and see if you can arrange a meeting. And Sergeant Nichols or Community Affairs will go out and address these communication issues one apartment complex at a time. And hopefully as this grows, the apartment manager from one building will talk to the apartment manager at the neighboring building, and we'll combine it. So we'll go out once and we'll address issues at 2 apartment complexes. But there is no organization that the 91 police officers and the 50 professional staff members of the police department can do, because we're dealing with other issues, okay? So community organization, grassroots organizations, our faith-based partners in this community, there's a good place to start with everyone. As far as the languages, the disparity of languages in Bonita Gardens, it is what it is. We do our best to communicate with everybody. I have a gentleman 2 rows behind you that's obviously translating to you know, I don't even know if you're friends, if you're associates, but.
Pastor Reyes.
Oh, okay.
He's the Spanish-speaking pastor here.
Got it. So we will figure things out. We will get our message across, but what we are not prepared to do as the police department is go back into the community and be the impetus for organizing the community to have these meetings. All right? So there are certain established neighborhoods in this city that have an annual meeting, and the police department is represented at that annual meeting. All right? But when I go to those meetings, I come prepared with statistics, not for the whole city. I come prepared with statistics from that area. And then I do remember what the last one was, a loading zone in front of the big apartment complexes. Which ones?
There's a lot of.
Because there's, on every street, there are 5 big apartment complexes next to one another. So do I create a loading zone in the entire street and take away all street parking? No, somebody's gonna plant a bomb on my car if I do that. So.
That's part of the problem, because again, if you have somebody that has a moving van on the east side of the street, and somebody, the next car pulling up on the west side of the street, and there's fire,
I understand what you're saying.
you know,
I'm asking for the potential solution.
I wish I had one.
So do I.
I really wish I
Okay?
had one.
Because if we did, we would have done it by now.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I've never known the fire department, when it was the Hawthorne Fire Department or the LA County Fire Department, they'll figure out a way to get to where they need to go. If you've ever seen, you know, a crew jump off a fire truck carrying their axes, an illegally parked car is not going to stand in their way.
Not gonna be an issue,
Yeah.
Well, like I said,
Okay.
I'm more concerned, you know, the cars, yeah, people can gang together and move a car. Doing it with a loaded U-Haul is a different issue.
But I'm not going to have our parking enforcement officers begin issuing parking cites to somebody who's moving into the community or moving away from the community, because I don't think that's reasonable. And I think that when you look at any potential conflict between our community members and local law enforcement, it's because one side perceives the other side to be unreasonable. So that's not an answer for me, personally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know what it is, so that's why I thought, bring it up and see if anybody else has anything to throw at the wall up.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have anything. Sir,
You know, do we still have the Coffee with the Cop program?
We do.
To do?
yes,
So is that being advertised, or is it, that's more of a pop-up?
Sergeant Nichols?
We had one 2 weeks ago, sir, and was advertised multiple times on the police department website. That is a police department function, that's not a city function. So the city will come out and, record something and do a piece on channel 22. So we do them quarterly, and the next one will be the national Coffee with the Cop, which is the first Wednesday of October. And I will make it a point to make sure that you have all that information at least a month in advance.
And thank you very much for having the event in the evening over at Target. Because there are many of us who don't make it at 8 to 9 in the morning. And having it in the evening over here was very helpful. There's a lot of
So
sore
far,
items.
that. So she's referring to our trailer one.
Right. And so in addition to the formal Coffee with the Cops, which we usually have hosted by one of our partners with a brick and mortar storefront in the city, McDonald's or Starbucks or any place that's willing to house the police department, because if there's one thing cops like more than donuts, it's coffee. And I can pretty much guarantee you that anyone who hosts a Coffee with a Cop is losing some profit by the amount of coffee that we're consuming when we're there for that 2.5-hour period. We do have a community substation trailer, and some of you might have seen that at some of our other city events. Shameless plug, we are doing a Movies in the Park tomorrow night at Memorial Park. The festivities start at 6 p.m. The movie starts when the sun goes down, because you can't project a movie onto an outdoor screen while the sun's up. And Lieutenant Saldana, I'm assuming that the community substation trailer will be out there as well?
It
So you could see what this community substation trailer is, and there's a comment about us deploying that trailer after regular business hours on a weekday in front of Target. So sometimes, for full disclosure, you might see us on social media saying that we're gonna be in a specific community. And other times, it is by design a pop-up. If my intention, or Lieutenant Saldana's intention, or Sergeant Nichols' intention, is to deter people from stealing from Target at a time where we feel statistically we have more reports of theft from a business, it doesn't make sense to us as from a law enforcement perspective to announce on social media that we're gonna be there, right? Like, I don't want to announce to the bad people, hey, this is the day to stay away. I want to inconvenience the bad people to the best of our ability. I want them to take the time to drive all the way to Hawthorne and drive through the parking lot and see a big giant police trailer parked in front of the store. Okay, so sometimes it's going to be advertised, and sometimes by design we do the pop-up, just to let you know. But what's going on at the trailer all the time is community engagement. That's what we're there for. Okay. Anything else?
I'm glad I came.
No, you're down to your last two questions.
Oh, it is, okay. I don't know if anybody asked this while I was taking my remit, but can you give us any feedback on what the fireworks situation was this year?
Yes, I can tell you that from reports from our on-duty supervisor the night of the 4th of July, that the actual fireworks situation throughout the city of Hawthorne this year was perceived by our police officers to be worse than previous years.
Thank you, I thought so too.
Okay?
The nights before and the nights after, not as much.
So,
Still.
and I did mention, I think it might have been right before you walked in, if you were to remove the COVID years, historically speaking, the city of Hawthorne, which allows safe and sane fireworks to be utilized on the 4th of July from 12 noon till 10 p.m. There's a 10-hour period where the city of Hawthorne allows you to use safe and sane fireworks. And it's only a 10-hour window on the 4th of July. What I can tell you is that historically on the 4th of July, we receive between 300 and 400 complaints of fireworks in the city of Hawthorne on the 4th of July. And this year we pulled the statistics after the 4th of July. We checked all calls for service related to fireworks beginning on July 1st, ending on July 7th, and there were fewer than 200 calls for service total. And my impression of that is there is a significant segment of our community here locally that does not want to be contacted by law enforcement in any way, shape, or form, either as a victim, as a witness, or as somebody. Obviously, if you're lighting off illegal fireworks, you're not going to call the police on yourself. But if you live down the street and your neighbor's lighting off illegal fireworks, people in this community, because of and I will just say it, I believe it's because of the concerns about immigration enforcement, do not want any contact with law enforcement, even though the Hawthorne Police Department is not involved in immigration enforcement. So they just stopped calling this year because it wasn't about the lack of illegal fireworks that were going off.
I just wondered if the drone was up or if there was anything.
No, I don't want to lose the drone because people start to purposely shoot fireworks at the drone. At the end of the day, this is a cost-benefit analysis. That's an expensive piece of technical equipment for us. And even if we were to catch somebody who's firing illegal fireworks at our drone, it would be for a misdemeanor conviction. Not worth it, okay? Pastor Greg, welcome.
I just wondered what you thought about the
Because I'm in a house of worship, I'll refrain from answering that till we're outside on the sidewalk. I will, for full disclosure, I will say that I have given up, and I will jump back on the bandwagon once the playoffs begin. But I've decided to not let them break my heart for the rest of the regular season. That was not nice. Gentlemen, anything?
We are concerned about the rates that are going
Fantastic question. Is anybody in here aware of California Senate Bill 54? Okay. So Senate Bill 54 is state legislation. So at the end of the day, it is subservient to federal law. Okay? In this country, based on the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, federal law reigns supreme. The state of California cannot look at a federal law and say that the federal law is invalid. Okay? What the state of California has done with Senate Bill 54, it has designated 3 types of locations and put the onus on those 3 locations to have a policy in place on what you will do should an immigration enforcement action occur at your location. And those 3 locations are schools, hospitals, and places of worship. This is California state law. They have put the onus back on you. So what I am comfortable saying as a police officer here in the state of California is the parking lot of your church is publicly accessible. Okay? If there's an immigration enforcement action in the parking lot, my advice is to observe and not interfere. However, you control access to the interior of the building. And unless those immigration enforcement authorities have a signed warrant, not a detainer, not asking for permission to come in, I would ask to see a signed warrant before granting them entry. Now, there are so many different caveats to that. If they're looking for a specific individual who was named and they believe that that person is in this building, it's such a gray area. I know it's not going to put anybody at ease, but yeah, we're balancing what they should and should not do. But there is the 4th Amendment, there's the 5th Amendment, there's the 10th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and then there's 2 clauses. I'll send you an email if you want, and if you can make heads or tails of it. If I were a legal scholar, I would be an attorney or a judge, okay? Generally speaking, look, there are always exceptions. Please make sure that we're relaying this. Generally speaking, if the area's access is not controlled, if I'm walking down the street here at this, right in front of the church, I can walk into the parking lot. Okay? But I can't necessarily walk into the back office. And that's the gray area, right? So what we would advise you of is to, if they're trying to get into a private secured area on the property, then you can ask for a warrant. But even in local law enforcement, we encourage the public. If you were to see 5 Hawthorne police officers engaged in an action, and you felt that, not immigration, anything, and you felt that it was inappropriate, my advice is observe, don't interfere, and contact the department later on to file your concerns, to express your concerns. So I would be remiss if that's my advice long before we started with this immigration issue. If that's my advice, if you just saw 5 Hawthorne police officers doing a violent arrest of an individual on the street, I would encourage you to do the same thing.
That, so if you're in here worshiping, you know who the folk that come and worship, right? Right? So if anybody that comes that you do not know and do not believe that belongs here, then you don't have to allow them. You and I have to get together and create a policy for our facility so that we can, because according to the chief now, the state has given us mixed churches.
The state has required those three types of institutions, schools, hospitals, and churches, to have a policy in place.
So we have to get together, we have to get together and create a policy.
Here's what I will tell you. If Sergeant Nichols goes out tomorrow when he's at work and he arrests somebody in the city of Hawthorne, that person eventually goes to court, okay? And there is an attorney that will say that Sergeant Nichols is the best and he did everything right and this person that was arrested should go to jail. And there is another attorney that will say Sergeant Nichols did everything wrong and this person should be released immediately. There is no clarity on the issue. There is no clarity on the question that you were asking. But I do want to clarify this because I don't want to give out any bad information. The policy is specified so that this congregation isn't guessing when this happens, okay? You should have a policy in place. Doesn't mean that it's going to protect any individual person. What would I compare this to, gentlemen? A restraining order. If I'm in an abusive relationship and my girlfriend is beating me on a daily basis and I get a restraining order, does that prevent my girlfriend from beating me? It's a piece of paper. So what the purpose of having a policy in place for those three types of institutions, and we just had the city adopt a statement that applies to the police department as well. It's so that the person who is here on Sunday, if that happens on a Sunday, reacts in the same exact fashion as the person who is here on a Thursday evening, if the same circumstances happen. It's a framework on how we individually as people responsible for those types of businesses behave. It's police department policy. But my police department, I shouldn't say your police department policy does not supersede federal authority in any way, shape, or form. So what I will do is, because there's no way that tonight that I can effectively explain the different nuances. This is, we are peeling back layers of a very, very difficult situation. If Spanish is the correct language, I'm going to refer you directly to Lieutenant Saldana, and you guys can communicate with each other. And for the specific questions that you might have, I would defer to him. Okay. Is that clear on why the state is requiring that policy? Okay. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I just want clarification. Is right, you know, you said there. Is mental favors in the church? You tell me I cannot come in to the actual church. I thought they would be able to do it. They could come in where it's public, but they can't go into like a back room where it's only like employees and so forth that they shouldn't, but they could if they're federal. But because it's a private area, it's open for public use, I was assuming that they could come into a church, but say that this area, this X exit right there, well, not the exit, but say that was just a private room where people or home employees can go. Therefore, they can put a sign at that door only where they cannot enter unless they have, a reason to, the person they're looking for or whatever. They're still federal, they can still go in there if they want to, that little gray area. But am I correct on that?
So here's how I'm going to answer your question. I am going to tell you that I personally am consistent with your thought process on that. But I qualify that with my story about Sergeant Nichols' arrest and having two attorneys argue this out in court. And the judge in one courtroom will say that Sergeant Nichols was the best. And if the same circumstances were argued in front of the judge in the second courtroom, the person who Sergeant Nichols arrested would be set free. Okay, there is a lot of room for subjectivity here on what's going on. And what I am not is an attorney. I am not a constitutional scholar, and I am not going to, if I make definitive comments on that topic, I don't want anybody to suffer any unintended consequences based on legal information I'm giving out that's beyond outside of my wheelhouse.
Okay, and then just one more question, that's it, just for clarity, because I think I understand what he's asking, and I don't want him to miss that, and then he ends up in jail for intervening with federal, which is important. There is a sign, people don't understand when they say, you have a signed warrant. So there are two of them, there's two of them. So let's not mistake that, and let's not get into that area, because it all depends if it was signed by a judge, or if it was signed by the ICE person, for instance. But I don't want to confuse anybody, but I don't want them thinking, oh, I have a warrant, and they won't let them in. It's a sticky situation right there, so I don't know if that needs to be clarified, or that, what I would recommend is to let them know that there is more to that. Just so they don't think, oh, it's not a signed warrant, and they think, I'm not gonna let that person, I'm just saying, just let them know that it's more to that.
Captain, I'm going to ask you to check me if I speak out of turn here. Commissioner Cohen, what you're referring to is a detainer. The detainer is effective in custody situations only. Okay? So that is a distinction that law enforcement has to make. So that would be, I have an individual that's in the Hawthorne City Jail right now, and we receive a detainer. And the detainer is a request from federal immigration authorities to turn physical custody of the individual we have in jail over to them. The detainer is not signed by a judge, but in a public setting, outside of a prison, a county jail, or a local jail facility like Hawthorne PD's jail, the only thing that's in play is a warrant. And all warrants, warrant cannot be signed off on by an administrative hearing officer. A warrant is signed off on by a judge. So if they present a warrant in a public place, with 99% certainty, it is legitimate. Okay. No, we're like, allotment was up. Yes, ma'am.
A specific Hawthorne legal question. If somebody wants to have a protest in the city of Hawthorne, are they required to have a permit? And if so, if you know, what's involved in obtaining a permit?
Yes and no. By the letter of the law, yes, 100%. If you would like to have some sort of a demonstration or protest in Hawthorne, you should get a permit, okay? If your demonstration is not going to break the law, if you're not asking for city support to close off a street, if you are not blocking a sidewalk, I'm not going to start splitting hairs and saying this is a formal protest or demonstration versus this is me and 5 of my friends protesting in the middle of the street because the Dodgers refused to get a starting rotation that could stay off the injured list. Okay, there's a nuance there.
You're talking to one person who doesn't diddly squat about the sports.
Fair enough. So we have had 3 demonstrations in the city of Hawthorne since the immigration enforcement began. And the people who are demonstrating have followed the law to the T.
So they have gotten hurt.
To the left, they have not. But they have not broken the law. They do not block traffic. They are not destroying property. They are expressing their First Amendment rights.
Okay.
So I will not send Hawthorne police officers to take any enforcement action against them.
Okay.
Now, the second you don't have a permit and you take over an intersection, now you've broken the law, and now I can take some action. So, generally speaking, if your action, your demonstration is not going to violate the law, we're going to allow you to go as far as you're not committing a public safety hazard. Okay? Clear as mud, I know, but like I said,
Well, it came up, and there's a number of pastors here, so if you'll indulge me for half a second. You were absolutely correct about the exemptions for the church and the hospital and the school. There's also specific exemptions from the American Disabilities Act for churches. And I had to deal with that situation recently. Lawyers were involved, and if any of you would like to have clarification on that issue, that's
are there any other questions? Because I would like to get into some of the bigger ticket general items that the police department is dealing with right now. So,
I'm not sure. It's related to this, so you say that, going back to ISIN, not sure if you know this, you can try to say my question, I guess. If, say they round up people, and they're U.S. citizens, I know some of this stuff, but I don't know the answer, so we could. Say they round up people, racial profiling, they grab a U.S. citizen. Accidentally, they did something like, accidentally grab a U.S. citizen, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10. Throw them in a van, take them. How long, required by law, to notice, how long they detain the U.S. citizen?
I do not know because that's a federal immigration enforcement act and local law enforcement does not get involved. Okay? And that's assuming everything that you're saying in that situation is factual. So I will give you the first incident here in the city of Hawthorne, where it has been repeatedly stated on open source media that immigration enforcement authorities detained 2 American citizens. Immigration enforcement authorities did not detain 2 American citizens. They arrested 2 American citizens for interfering with their investigation, which is something that the Hawthorne Police Department does not on a regular basis, but when it is necessary for us to arrest bystanders because they are preventing us from doing our job, we do the same thing. So there's a lot of nuance, and language has to be very, very specific when we're dealing with immigration issues, especially in today's environment. Or we end up perpetuating a myth or giving out, inadvertently painting a picture that is just not factual. And that's not going to help anybody, regardless of what side of the issue you're on. So I would caution everybody to verify any rumors that we might hear. Okay? Moving forward here really, really quickly. When I talked about big ticket items here, and this is a snapshot of what's going on in the city. Since January 1st of this year, how many firearms do you think have been taken off the street by your Hawthorne Police Department? Since January 1st. Any guesses? What's that? January 1st until, oh no, let's go in increments of 25. It's the price of right. You're way low. Next,
I would say 68.
closer, much closer, but you're still low.
200.
That's way high. We're under 100. Under 100 firearms taken off the street by Hawthorne police officers since January 1st.
99.2.
It's 89. 89 firearms taken off the street by Hawthorne police officers. And I submit, when is the last time that you have seen your Hawthorne police officers in the news for using excessive force?
No, shoot, that was a long time ago.
89 armed individuals contacted by your police officers, guns taken off the street. But if you would listen to other sources of information, we should have shot 89 different people. There is an incredible amount of restraint that is shown by your local police officers because of the gentlemen in the back that are involved in the screening process for our hiring standards. And if you want to discuss immigration at a more subjective level, we're offended by federal tactics more than anything else. So I want to assure everybody who's taken time this evening to come out here that your cops are doing really, really good. Right? The next list I have here, the LA County Probation Department is in shambles. This is the county agency that is responsible for supervising everybody in the county of Los Angeles who has been given probation instead of incarceration. In the city of Hawthorne, how many people do you think are on probation? A little high. You're close. 225. Who's watching them? Are we?
No, probation is supposed to be watching.
Supposed to be. You're right.
So everybody's been diverted to the hall.
All LA County probation officers have been recalled to properly staff juvenile hall. There is no field supervision being executed right now by the LA County probation officer for any of the 225 people in the city that are on probation. 0. Of those 225 people, 17 have been classified by the LA County Probation Department as being very high risk. An additional 35 have been described or classified as high risk. The high risk category and the very high risk category require no fewer than 4 checks per year. And our, not yours, they're mine too, our LA County Probation Department is asking the Hawthorne Police Department to take on that administrative role.
And you said no.
Well, I mean, we only have, what, 91 assigned, and we need 108, so we're here talking, am I talking too
No,
much?
No, that,
your numbers are a little off. Right now we have 91 police officers, including myself, and I don't do police work anymore.
So we're short of 20.
We're not staffed for 108. We're short 4. We're budgeted for 95 police officers. What I'm getting at is this: Hawthorne is not the worst city in LA County in terms of the number of people that are on probation. I'm not even looking, well, parole is still doing their version of supervision. Okay? But probation is completely out of the game. And they're asking our local police departments, not just Hawthorne, they're asking for the Southgate Police Department, they're asking for the Santa Monica Police Department, they're asking for the Beverly Hills Police Department to assume the responsibility of field supervision for everybody in the county who is on probation, because they do not have enough deputy probation officers to do this themselves. This is a full-time job to do it right for 10 officers. We can handle this if we had 10 officers to do it right. How many police officers are currently working on patrol right now in the city of Hawthorne as we talk to each other tonight? A little bit higher. I hope it's 6. Do we have 6 on tonight?
When I was in briefing earlier, there was 6.
6. A full-time job for 10 police officers, so that means every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, there's just no police officers working. We'll watch probation instead. That's a big ticket item that we're trying to figure out. This is something that we're trying to negotiate with the county probation department. But in the meantime, your administrators in the back there, it's not fair to the community of Hawthorne to not try to help. So we're gonna try and do what we need to do. But at the end of the day, we've already jettisoned, we've given up the people that are not classified as high risk or very high risk. We have to focus on the people who pose the greatest threat to our community, and it's those 2 categories. And we still don't have the resources to be able to supervise them in the field and make sure that they're complying with the terms of their probation. Yes.
When Joe Smith gets convicted and is put on probation, or on parole, whatever, does HPD get a notice that Joe Smith is on probation or on parole?
No.
So you have, so out of the people that are on probation here,
There's never been a necessity to give us a notification because probation and parole were handling it themselves.
okay, so now that they're asking you to take it over?
That's why I have this list.
Are they're letting you know who's in the region?
Attempting to let us know who's in the region. So if I were sentenced to, and this is a hypothetical, if I committed a crime and I were sentenced to 6 months in county jail with 2 years of probation, and I did 4 months in county jail and they released me early because of overcrowding, and I provided an address in Hawthorne, is anybody driving to that address to verify that that's exactly where I live?
No.
The information is only as good as what is verified. And there's no verification going on with any of this information right now. This is not the fault of the county probation department, but here is the hard truth. I'm a voter. And if the county of Los Angeles asks me to vote in the next election to raise the amount of my property taxes, to hire a lot more deputy probation officers, I'm probably going to vote no. If the county of Los Angeles asks me to pay more sales tax than I currently do for every time I go shopping in order to build another juvenile hall facility because of overcrowding in our juvenile hall facilities, I'm probably going to vote no. Hard decisions to make. Every single one of us in this room are responsible for the current plight that we're in. I don't have an answer. I'm explaining things the way that they are. And I'm not even saying that throwing money at the problem is going to resolve it. But 10 police officers equates to 3 days of no patrol coverage. Absolutely not. We're not going to do that, right? So we have to figure out, and this is why Captain Lane has no hair, he has to figure out how to accomplish both. And there is no clean way to accomplish both. But these are the things that our community does not know that are going on. These are the things that are affecting us in the law enforcement realm. And this is not a Hawthorne-centric problem. This is a LA County problem. Okay? And then the last thing that I wanted to discuss, crime stats for the entire city year to date, January 1st through yesterday. These numbers are 24 hours old compared to how we were in 2024. The crime categories of murder, sexual assault, robbery, felony assault, misdemeanor assault, domestic violence, burglary, both residential and commercial, petty theft, shoplifting under $900, theft from vehicles and theft of vehicle, I'm sorry, not theft from vehicles. All those categories, year to date, we've experienced a decline in those incidents. Sounds outstanding.
I thought you were going to give me an outrageous number, I was like, wait a minute.
No. And the reason why I say it sounds outstanding is this, Pastor Jefferson. I will not stand up here and look any of you in the eye and tell you that there's a decline in crime. Because I don't know if the decline in crime that we're witnessing statistically is because people have just stopped caring. Is it worth it to me to call the police because someone stole the bicycle from the side of my house? What are they going to do anyway? All right? We have to do better as human beings, and we have to dig into the information that we have available to us and try and actually realize what those stats mean. I'm very, very happy with the drop in crime statistically. But having gone through the last 5 years, and Sergeant Nichols and Lieutenant Saldana know this better than I do, we've gone through a period of roughly 10 years in the state of California where we have taken crimes, traditional crimes, and we have decriminalized them with the best of intentions. And now we have a new elected district attorney in LA County who is saying, no, we're going to make those things crimes again. So even though we said drug possession was going to be decriminalized, now we have a DA in LA County that in specific instances is going to charge people criminally with drug possession. Not all old felonies are going to be felonies again, but misdemeanors will now be criminally charged. Where do they go? Who are you going to let out of county jail right now in order to put a property crime person there? So here's the blip. The three blips are grand theft is up. That's theft basically greater than $1,000. Theft from cars is up. Different from a vehicle or burglary. That means that you left your car unlocked and someone stole something from it. And theft of vehicle parts is up. What's theft of vehicle parts? Catalytic converters. Yes, there you go. So somebody is stealing catalytic converters. That's up in our city. We catch them. They get convicted of a crime. And now the district attorney in LA County is going to charge them with that crime. And they get sentenced to jail. Who are we letting out of jail to make room for that bad guy? Who makes up our jail population right now? I'm not going to let somebody out of jail who stabbed another human being to make room for a person who stole a catalytic converter. So the person who stole the catalytic converter gets sentenced to probation. And who was watching the people who were on probation in this fine city? Nobody. I am very happy as a law enforcement professional to say that the police officers that work in this city and every other city feel supported by the LA County DA's office now because they're actually prosecuting crimes. And then out of the other side of my mouth, I will tell you that if you ask me to pay more property tax or sales tax to build another jail or another prison, I will tell you no. I don't have an answer for you. This is a personal decision that each of us individually will have to make. But I've walked us down this horrible road. because I want people to understand why if you take the time to get involved, if you see something in the city of Hawthorne, you report this crime, it's not out of the realm when it's explained to each of us individually why you see that person walking down the sidewalk the next day. And I'm the first to tell you I don't have the answer for that. So that's reality. And then I'll spend the last part of tonight talking about the good stuff. Technology is wonderful. I grew up in the 1970s and the 1980s, and I read all the books by George Orwell. I'm concerned about government overreach. I'm concerned about government surveillance. But this city and your elected officials have done a phenomenal job consistently for the past 20 years of supporting the police department's efforts to leverage technology to be more consistent and to be more efficient and to be more effective in keeping the community safe. We have an extensive network of cameras throughout the city, not looking into the window here, okay, but at public intersections. We have drones that are operating in this city right now. And because Captain Lane is so worried about government overreach, he's personally established a policy where we only launch the drones in response to
Usually patrol 911 calls.
a specific call for service, right? The drones might be up in the middle of the day patrolling city parks. The drones might be up in the middle of the day patrolling city property, but if the drone is flying over your neighbor's house, it's because we got a call for service at your neighbor's house. And here is what the drone and here is what this technology affords us. When we get that call of a man in a parking lot with a gun in his or her waistband, instead of 5 police cars pulling into that parking lot and 5 police officers pointing guns at somebody in that parking lot, they're parking 3 blocks away and waiting for the drone to go overhead. And they respond to that parking lot in person, armed with tactical information, workable information. They know that the man being described is not in the parking lot anymore. They don't point their guns at the person that they first see in the parking lot. They know that the man with the gun is still in the parking lot, but that the drone can actually see the person's waistband and there is no gun. There's a huge de-escalation process there's a layer of de-escalation that we have access to now at the police department that didn't exist 5 years ago. And I'm hoping that someday we'll be able to figure out how to leverage that technology. All of our intersection cameras, the drone, our officers that actually work patrol are all wearing body-worn cameras. A lot of our police car fleets have automated license plate readers in them. We have automated license plate readers at intersections throughout the city. I'm hoping that we will be able to leverage that technology eventually to prevent crime from happening in the first place. Because what it has absolutely had a positive effect on is what used to take a 72-hour labor-intensive investigation to identify and locate people who break the law in this city now takes 15 minutes. So maybe instead of worrying about having 3 detectives track down the person who stole 6 catalytic converters yesterday, maybe those 3 detectives can spend some time in their regular workday tomorrow checking up on people in this city who are on probation. That's where the technology comes in. And this is not calculus. I'm not trying to land a man on the moon again. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to leverage capabilities so that we can deploy our resources. I shouldn't even say me. Lieutenant Saldana and Captain Lane are trying to leverage our capabilities so that we can deploy our resources to be safe. And who do you think is committing the crimes in this city? A lot of people who are on probation because there's no real consequences for them. So this is what we're doing. So it all ties in together. There are bright spots in the future. The tech is definitely one of them, but the biggest bright spot for your Hawthorne Police Department are the people. And I'm not talking about myself, I'm not talking about our captains, our command staff, I am talking about the people who actually do the work. The bright spots for the city of Hawthorne that you will not get anywhere at any other city is the responsiveness that the city staff in this city do. If you were to call and report graffiti on the side of a building in the city of Los Angeles, maybe in 8 months, there's a cleanup crew that goes out to take that graffiti off. If you do that in Hawthorne, I can pretty much guarantee that that graffiti is going to be removed in 72 hours. You will not find, and that's not the police department, that's public works, right? A little bit of a pet peeve of mine, there are probably, collectively speaking, more speed bumps in this city that drive me personally insane than in any other city that I've ever had the pleasure of driving through. But when the community wants a speed bump, what does the community get? It gets a speed bump. Yeah. So there is an incredibly, not collectively speaking, for all city departments, there is an incredible amount of good work that's going on in this city. The police department is but one city department, but I do want to give some recognition to those other city departments. They're doing a phenomenal job. And I think that we have the other bright spots that are coming up in the future. We have some regional events here. Kyle, I'm sorry, I know you want to not be westbound on the 105 exiting Prairie Avenue, but next year we're going to have the World Cup. 2027, the Super Bowl comes back to SoFi. 2028, the Olympics are coming to town, and none of those things are going to have a positive effect on the amount of traffic that's in the region. Okay? But our goal is to make the city of Hawthorne as hospitable as it possibly can, to take advantage of some economic opportunity that's coming to the region, and we'll see if if we can raise some revenue for the city here. We'll see that whether or not we can capitalize on that. Do some more community improvement, right? But there's a lot that goes on. I encourage everyone to stay informed. You don't have to go to the council meetings, but you should try and watch a summary of it on YouTube when your schedule permits it, all right? So those are the big ticket items. These are the things that you don't see. Like there's no newsletter that goes out that says there's 225 people in the city of Hawthorne that are on probation and no one's watching them. But these are the things that keep all of your police officers awake at night, because we're aware of this and we're doing our best. They're doing their best, right? So that's it. Again, this was your forum. I spent the last 15 minutes trying to push out a lot of high-level information as to what's going on in the law enforcement world. You have some great questions, but they seem like you need much more refinement in my responses. That's why I'm going to ask you to exchange information with Lieutenant Saldana and ask him specific questions, and he will be able to advise you appropriately on this. Okay? Any last second go-arounds here?
Bicycle, well, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to thank you for all you do for everything that you do in the city of Hawthorne. We pray that the Lord bless you and protect you.
And the Dodgers. And the Dodgers. Right? Right? We don't pray for the Yankees. Okay. And the Dodgers. Okay. Well, thank you. Look, it's a Thursday evening. We're coming off of a holiday. I know that it takes some commitment to be involved in your community. But please be, as much as you are comfortable with, be amplifiers of the information that was given out tonight. But be accurate in how we push out that information. The more people who know about what's going on in this community, the more educated they will be to speak from a position of actual knowledge instead of what they're hearing through the rumor mill. And this is very, very important, especially when it comes to the immigration issue. Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you, Pastor Jefferson, for hosting us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. We have got some snacks for you guys. leave those here. Take them with you. If you go, take them with you. Okay? We appreciate you. We appreciate you, Chief. We appreciate Sergeant Nichols. Yeah, turn the light on so they can see where the food is back there. Yeah, so.
More than a snack, Cass, doesn't forget about it.
So make sure, if not, you guys take them to the guys at the station. Okay. All right. Thank you all so much.
Sir, thank you.
Thank you again.
Nice to meet you again.
We will see you guys soon, thank you.
And I got a whole bunch of lobster drinks.
Okay.
Well, you guys said, I'll make it, deliver it.
Did you hear that I'm a monster drinker? Did he tell you about that?
No. We got a lot of,
Thank you.
a lot of,
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Oh.
Thank you. It was nice seeing you.